Welcome to the sixth and final episode of Side Money Stories. I'm Amanda Kenny.
And I'm Lucy Gray. Today we have a very special guest, James Colstra.
Hi, it's James Callistra. How are you?
Callistra, my bad. I'm sorry.
There you go.
Could you just give us a
Good.
little explanation about like who you are and what you do?
Sure. My name's James. I'm from New Jersey, and my company is called Wonderfish. I come from the media space, so I spent a lot of time with publishers such as The Economist and Forbes. And what Wonderfish is, it's a podcast booking agency. So actually support a lot of different CEOs, founders, executives, and also coaches and consultants. And I get them experiences on podcasts. But it's not just about the booking. I go above and beyond to support them, prepare them for the shows, create content from the actual recordings, and there's a lot of research involved to find the right shows. But that's what Wonderfish is.
Yeah, that sounds awesome. Can you expand on your past side hustles and what that initially entailed from the job?
Yeah, so when this actually started at The Economist when I was working there. This is way back in 2013. I always had an interest in condiments in the world of like hot sauces, salsas, ketchups, things like that. It was kind of my nerdy obsession. And I started testing in my own kitchen a couple different recipes. I always made salsas and I made hot sauces, but I started making this spicy ketchup. And it was kind of unique. There was not a lot on the market at the time as far as like more artisanal, natural ketchups. And I started my own recipe. It had apple cider vinegar in it. It had for the sweetener, it had honey and molasses, and then it just had some spices and tomato puree was the main ingredient. I started to bring it into my office, and people really liked it. I was doing some taste tests, so I ended up launching it. That was in 2013 on Kickstarter, and I found some success. I started selling it at farmers markets and small grocery stores in and around New Jersey, and I got to the point, I did it for about 3 years. I got to the point where I needed to make a decision. Do I want to really scale this and go all in on it, or really essentially stop making it because it was really just a passion project. It wasn't really making a lot of money. I was really kind of maybe paying for itself. But in the food space, there's a really low margin type of business model. Most food companies don't have high margins just because of the cost of goods, and people aren't really willing to pay a lot of money for ketchup. So I ultimately made the decision to stop producing it. But then I started doing more like reviews of different hot sauces and condiments on Instagram, and I kind of still do that today.
All right, that's
I think a side hustle is a really great avenue to test something. It's also a great way to really flex your muscles in some different areas and skill sets that you might not be utilizing in your current role. And for me, being on the media side, I mean, we weren't doing anything related to food. Really, more, Forbes is always about success, and every once in a while we would touch different food and beverage related categories with our clients or the people we were covering, but there wasn't really anything involved in my day-to-day that was related to food, and it was just a passion of mine. So as I said, it was kind of like a labor of love where I enjoyed making it. I enjoyed people's reactions to tasting it and actually buying it and all that stuff. And I think it was just a way for me to learn something new and to grow. But it did get to the point where I had to make the decision of like, if I'm going to go all in on this, I need to really dedicate a lot more time and money to it. Mm-hmm. And at the time I had, 2 little kids. I still have kids. They're older now, and I had a full-time job. So I think it's great to have a side hustle, but you also have to make a decision at some point in time if this is something that you really want to pursue at scale. And if that's the case, you may not be able to stay in your full role. And a lot of times people turn side hustles into full-time gigs.
Gotcha. Okay. Did you do this with anyone, or were you like a solo venture of this?
Oh, it was a solo venture. Yeah.
Awesome. Love it.
That's great. So would you say that your side hustles inspired you from your current job that you have right now?
Entrepreneur in my current role, I'm a founder. I'm an entrepreneur, and it definitely taught me that I have a lot of abilities to solve problems because that's really what you are as an entrepreneur. You're always solving problems and trying to figure out how you're going to meet people's needs and offer different solutions. And I learned a lot about different lessons that I still think about when I was making this ketchup because there was at one point where I did a prototype of the ketchup where I went to a what they call a co-packer, which is someone that the ketchup for you instead of you having to make it up. I used to rent out a commercial kitchen, but this is like I'm talking like a big factory that makes hundreds of thousands of gallons of all these different products, and then they allow you to sell it like kind of white label it. And to them, they told me that they could do the entire recipe, but they didn't have apple cider vinegar in house. And I said, okay. And they're like, we can ship it in, but it's going to be a lot more money. So I was like, all right, let's just do white vinegar. But it ended up being like there's a whole process where I had to wait for it to be produced. By the time I got it, I was like, this isn't what I really wanted. I got to start over with like another prototype, and I got to ask them for the apple cider vinegar, um, and then also it just like wasn't. And besides the fact that it was white vinegar, it wasn't exactly what I had really wanted, or it didn't remind me of my actual ketchup that I made because it was just different. So it was one of those lessons where I think you have to kind of figure out what makes sense when it comes to like you don't want to cut corners. And by the way, I'm getting a really big echo right now. It's kind of throwing me off. I don't know if you could turn down the volume somewhere. But I take little lessons like that, like from experiences of making something. Because right now I'm making something. I'm producing a product that's more of a service, but then I have a lot of software related AI and stuff involved, and I have to try to understand like what do I want to try to make myself? What do I want to use like an outsider or like a third party vendor for? And so I always have in the back of my mind like those memories of making ketchup because it just kind of taught me a lot of different lessons.
Yeah, so we actually have a fun question to ask. Do you have any interesting stories or flavors that you encountered throughout your time?
Sorry, interesting stories or flavors that I encountered?
Yeah,
So,
like, do you have
I
any
mean,
crazy stories with clients or any like flavor requests that were crazy?
oh, nothing like super crazy. I did make like a bacon ketchup for someone because when I did my Kickstarter, one of the rewards was that they got to pick their own flavor. He wanted just like a bacon, I think it was like bacon, salt, and pepper. But I had two flavors that I made. I had a spicy chipotle, and then I just had an original version. Um, and yeah, the spicy chipotle was my favorite. I think that was the crowd favorite. People liked it. It had like a nice little kick. Um, Stories, I mean, I don't have a lot of stories, but I remember just being in the kitchen and my little daughter, she was like 2 years old, and she was running around, and my wife used to help me, so she used to like literally help me like carry all these ingredients, the spice mixtures and everything I had to take over to this commercial kitchen. And we didn't have like I mean, we had my mother-in-law to watch our daughter during the daytime, but usually I was doing this on I think a side hustle, like you have to remember, like, um, for some people, you don't necessarily need it to be like the biggest money maker. I talked to someone today. I was actually on another podcast, and like her main profession is like she's a therapist, and then her side hustle is a podcast all about creativity. So side hustles don't necessarily need to be money makers. They could be something that's just like a passion project, could be a volunteer thing that to give back to the community. So there's a lot of different like reasons to do it. It's not just about making money. But for me, like I was willing to do something that was more about a passion and like not necessarily a money making thing. But if I was asking my wife for help and getting her involved. It wasn't her passion. So that's why she kind of pushed back a little bit. It was like, why are we doing this? Like, what is going on? Like, I can't help you make this ketchup anymore. So if you're asking people to help something that like you care about, I think that's important.
That's very fair and very true. So how long did you do this side hustle for?
So I did it from 2013, and then I stopped making the ketchup in 2016. But then right around that time, it might have been 2017, I started to miss being in that industry. So that's when I launched a Instagram called The Secret Society, and I still have that. Sometimes I can send you the link to it if you want to put it on the show notes or whatever. But I wanted to stay involved in that. There's like kind of a sauce culture or a sauce community with mostly like hot sauce makers and other condiments. But I started going to a lot of different conventions and like festivals where people were sharing their sauces, and I started doing a lot of different reviews. And the goal with The Secret to create a community where we can do like sauce tastings at breweries. And I started to do a couple, and then COVID happened and they kind of shut down that dream because people didn't want to they didn't want to like share bottles of sauce with other people, and it was just kind of a logistical issue. And then I just haven't really done any since then, but I do sometimes post videos on my Instagram on The Secret Society because it's another way to just kind of tap into my passion of being involved in that community.
Awesome. Love that.
Yeah, no, that's a great way to get people involved, especially with like the food industry. I know breweries are very popular nowadays.
Exactly.
So going off of that, do you think side hustles have like a huge stigma on its name and like basically what it's known for? Because we see a lot of college students or our past guests have been like parents trying to support their families. Do you have any intake on that?
That's a great point. I mean, I think a lot of people are using it as a means to kind of increase, obviously, their income and, have a second means of income because, a lot of people are struggling and just need to pay off some debt or whatever. So there's I remember at one point, I think it was 2017, I actually did drive Uber on the side a little bit. And then I was actually working in a brewery because even when you have like a six-figure salary, I mean, there's some times where you could always just like have a little bit of extra money, like pay off some debt or go on a vacation or things like that. But I do think you made a good point, like the stigma or the word side hustle kind of gets a negative connotation where maybe it doesn't seem like it's a serious thing, or a lot of people can have multiple sources of income and it can actually be like really fruitful and really valuable. So
yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
That's awesome. So currently right now, I know you said that you haven't like done anything with the ketchup or the hot sauce, but if you had to do a side hustle, do you think you would continue to do that or would you do a different one?
That's a great question. I think that right now I'm just so focused, like, because I'm in the early stages of building Wonderfish. So I'm just very careful. I don't want to take I don't want to have a distraction or take my attention away from what I'm building. So what I've been thinking about though, because I do really want to give back, and I have a couple of different causes that are important to me. One of them is the military. My brother, he's in the credit to help military veterans. So one of the things that I think I could do is sort of a side hustle, but like a side project that ties back into what I'm doing with Wonderfish, is give military veterans an opportunity to have the platform to go on podcasts. And so I might need to do something where I go on Kickstarter again and raise money because I would want to have some like significant resources that I can use to kind of shift, actually put attention to this and have some of my employees and team members like giving the platform to military veterans, but not charging them. So it'd almost be like a nonprofit arm, I guess, of Wonderfish. So that's been something I've been thinking about. But someday I probably will get back into the food business and maybe launch another hot sauce or ketchup or something. I'm just not ready to do it like anytime soon. But I think it's definitely in the cards for the future at some point.
Gotcha. That's awesome. Do you have any advice for anyone who would want to start a side hustle or do something similar to that?
I would say don't be afraid to talk to people who are successful doing exactly what you want to do. I feel like sometimes people have a fear that, they see someone doing something and they want to do it, but they don't want to talk to that person because they see them as like a competitor. And I'll give you an example. Like when I was working at Forbes, we launched our Under 30 Summit, which is the event for our Forbes Under 30 list, and we did it in Philadelphia. And one of the guys that made the list, he had a company called Sir Kensington's, which was a ketchup brand, and they ended up getting bought a couple of years later by Unilever, so they were really successful. But I saw one of the guys, I don't remember his name, but I remember he had this like crazy mustache, and he was at the event, and I was like afraid to go up and talk to him because in my head I was like, oh, I make a ketchup, like he's a competitor, I don't want to tell him that I make ketchup. But in retrospect, it was so silly and so stupid because he probably would have thought it was really cool, like I have a ketchup too or whatever. And now I try to bring that into what I'm doing with Wonderfish, where I see other people that have podcast booking agencies or they're in the space. I always try to meet with them and share notes if they're willing and ask them, especially if they're more established, like what they've done to find success. So I think that's really important, like network within that industry of whoever's doing whatever it is that you want to do and ask questions, because people do want to help you out as long as you're kind and approach it the right way.
Gotcha. Yeah, I can definitely see that. Did you learn anything from your time doing like the hot sauce and ketchup that you took in your professional career now?
Sorry, did I learn anything during my time doing the ketchup? I still think about like some of the different lessons I picked up when I was even in the early stages of like launching that business. You have to make a lot of different decisions in terms of like, what do I want to do in-house? What do I want to outsource? And so I definitely like think back to those early stages when I'm building Wonderfish now. But I think the big picture lessons that I've learned is just being a problem solver and, being an entrepreneur. Like I kind of didn't identify as an entrepreneur at that point in time. So I think it's helped me just kind of build that as part of my identity.
Gotcha. Awesome.
Yeah, no, that's definitely so important. Where in our classes here, we're learning just like all the resources that we need to build a company and just reach out to people. Don't be afraid, no matter how scary it is, because like you said, like they could find it really cool and interesting that you are interested in the same topic, and that might help you along the way. So we think we really do.
We resonate with
you.
We get told
yes.
to network with professionals quite a bit.
That's awesome. Yeah. And definitely, I love that you reach out to me on LinkedIn. That's really smart. Keep doing that. Building that network is so important, because when I was at Forbes, I didn't necessarily have to do that because, I had a really powerful brand behind, my name. And when I was reaching out to people, it didn't matter how many followers I had. Like, oh, you work at Forbes, sure, we'll talk to you. But then when that kind of ends and you're not working for a corporation, or you might be in between jobs or looking for a job, it's better to have your own network that you can always rely on, and just keep building that if you can. And that's your own, no one can take that away from you for the most part. I mean, you can always download the data of all of your connections and everything, but keep building your own network. That's very important.
Okay, yes, thank you so much.
Well, we really appreciate your time, and thank you so much for coming on Side Money Stories.
Absolutely. Yeah, it was great. Great to chat with you guys. Good luck with everything. And thanks for having me on.
Thanks so much.
Thank you so much. We will talk to you later.
All right, that's it for today's final episode of Side Money Stories. If you enjoyed this one, make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss the next story. We've got plenty more side hustles coming your way. And come along with us on Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok. That's where we drop clips, extra tips, behind-the-scenes stuff, and updates on new episodes. Thank you for listening. We'll catch you in the next one.